Hi guys, welcome to the class. This is the class of international negotiation and I am Kyung Jung, who is in charge of this class. Well, first of all, I'd like to express my sorry about the weird situation that we are now in. Well, owing to the coronavirus, we cannot meet each other in person in a classroom, but instead we are meeting on the online. I'm really sorry about this and I don't like this situation, but well, I hope that we can overcome these difficulties in the near future and we can meet in the classroom altogether. Well, when well when I look at the attendance sheet, I can find out three students enrolled this class: Simon Feta, Rebecca Quirimis, and Selimite. But unfortunately, Rebecca canceled the semester and maybe went back her hometown, and we have two students for this semester. Maybe Feta is your family name and Simon is your name. Yeah, is it right, Simon? And when it comes to Selimite, how can I? What should I call you? How can I address you? And maybe Selimite would be your name. I don't know exactly. So let me know your name when you meet in person at the classroom. So anyway, two would be enough for the class. So I think that we can have a nice class this semester. But most of all, the coronavirus problem should be solved in advance. Well, okay, then my uh, uh, well, uh, my next before entering into the class, uh, I will show you some negotiation cases, and we can talk about that. The first case is presidential candidate Mr. Daja's poster negotiation. And Mr. Daja was once the presidential candidate of the United States. And Daja's presidential camp had a serious problem just 3 days before the election day. It's quite simple. It's about the poster problem. You know what poster is? Yeah, poster. Yeah, poster for the presidential election. Just 3 days before the election day, and also posters are already printed. At least millions and hundreds of millions posters are printed. But the problem is that they found that the picture which was used for the poster, when it comes to the picture, the copyright of the picture belongs to Mr. Johnston. So they already selected the picture of the presidential candidate and they used it for the poster and they already printed it out. But the problem is, they found the copyright belongs to Mr. Johnston and they didn't get the permission from Mr. Johnston. And they tried to find out who Mr. Johnston is and where he is, and they found that Mr. Johnston lives in San Francisco, and but he was a photographer, but he was suffering from poverty and financially difficult. So Mr. Daja's presidential camp had to solve this problem, but the opinions of the opinions of the presidential camp was divided into two. Sorry. One group argued that they should use the appeasement policy. Yeah, appeasement policy is quite simple. Yeah, they use an ardent appeal to Mr. Johnston, and it's quite we should acknowledge the mistake and then get the recognition from Mr. Johnston by appealing him ardently. Maybe if we persuade him, maybe he will give the permission to us, was one opinion. And the other opinion was approach with the money. Yeah, they try to solve the problems with the money. And if we can promise the financial compensation, then we can get the copyright. But Mr. Daniel, who worked for the presidential camp, made a quite clever idea and he solved the problem. But it was not like those two mentioned on the slide. And what can it be? And what can it be? Well, what can be your opinion? How, if you are in that presidential camp, how can you solve this problem? Just to think of it. And be creative. I'll give you 30 seconds. Mr. Johnston, a poor guy, and he is suffering financially, and he did not know that his picture was used for the presidential candidate, and now he can get the information. And if they use the poster without the permission from the Johnston, the presidential can be sued, and they had to pay a lot of penalty for that. But so it means that they had to get the copyright before using the poster, and how could they solve it? You find the answer? Okay. Mr. Daniel's choice was quite interesting. It's quite simple. Mr. Daniel called Mr. Johnston and he said like this: "Hey, Mr. Johnston, I'm Daniel from Mr. Daja's presidential camp, and I have a good news for you." And Mr. Johnston replied, "What is it?" Yeah. And Mr. Daniel said, "The good news is that we chose your picture to use it on the presidential poster. It's really an honor, but unfortunately our presidential camp is short of money. So as a way of, how can I put it, as a way of, solving the problem, we want you to donate some money to the camp. If we use that picture taken by you, how much money can you donate for the camp?" And Mr. Johnston, was quite surprised to hear the news, he was quite perplexed to hear the news, and he did not find out the main intention of Mr. Daniel. So Mr. Johnston replied like this: "Oh, it's a great honor that you select my picture to use it on the presidential poster, but I'm quite, financially difficult now, so I cannot donate any money to you, but instead I can give the copyright to you. Just please use my picture." And the situation solved. Can you guess the similar situation in your own experiences like this? Actually, Mr. Daniel and the Dodgers presidential camp was quite in a difficult situation, but by changing the framework, they could solve the problem with clever ways. And this kind of case can be taken from the Tom Sawyer's Adventure written by Mark Twain. Have you ever read that book? Tom Sawyer's Adventure, quite famous book. Yeah, we can find a lot of episodes in the book of Tom Sawyer's Adventure, and among those a lot of episodes for treasure hunting and the cave adventure, something like that. Which is most impressive in terms of negotiation? Can you guess? Where is it? Just think of Tom Sawyer's Adventure. Yeah, wall painting. In Tom Sawyer's Adventure, you can find the episode wall painting. And Tom Sawyer was ordered by his aunt to paint the wall, but he did not want to do that. But when his friends passed by, he paused that wall painting is the most interesting and important work in the world. And he didn't do anything. Instead, he let his friends paint the wall after receiving something precious from his friends. Yeah, this is quite interesting case. And by changing the framework, Tom Sawyer made the difficult work quite interesting work. So like that, Mr. Daniel made the problematic situation solved easily. So, but this kind of negotiation case cannot be taken as the typical example of international negotiation that we will review for the semester. And this kind of negotiation is quite easily found at the cases of business negotiation and daily negotiations, but it's a little bit different from the negotiation cases in international negotiation. I will explain why it is a little bit later. Okay, and then let's go to the negotiation case 2. Well, just try to find out the winner. Yeah, this is about the Civil War of the United States, and after the Civil War, the South was defeated, and the representative of the South, the General Lee, had to surrender to General Grant, who was the representative of the North. So by looking at the pictures, trying to find out who is General Grant and who is General Lee. General Lee was from Southern camp, and General Grant was from Northern camp. Okay? Okay, this is the first picture, and just look at him. Well, he's well dressed and even short, and his boots is shiny. But when it comes to these guys, well, dressed in humble and no belt here. And when it comes to their boot, it is muddy, quite dirty. So, who is the winner? And who is General Lee and who is General Grant? Okay, next page. Try to find out who is General Grant and who is General Lee. Next page. And next page. And next page. And this is the last one. I tell you the answer. Yeah. This is General Lee and this is General Grant. And General Lee was the loser and he was the winner. But among those pictures, we can find out that General Lee is depicted more nicely. Why is it so? Why is he painted more nicely? Well, this is the negotiation case 2, just between the General Grant and General Lee. General Lee had to surrender to General Grant at Appomattox Courthouse on April 9th of 1865, and it was after the 5 years Civil War in the United States. And actually, after they were defeated, well, the Southern Army had no way but to surrender. So General Lee visited the Appomattox Courthouse, well, with his best coat. He did not want to lose his dignity, even though, well, they lost the game. So he was well dressed up and even carried his sword. But, well, when General Lee visited Appomattox Courthouse, General Grant was just came back from his guard, and so that's why he was dressed in humble, and his boots were muddy, and he looked quite tired and tiny here. Well, when we look at this picture, well, maybe these guys can be seen as the losers, and these guys are, well, like winners. But when General Lee expressed his intention that I would surrender, General Grant accepted it without condition. Yeah, General Grant did not make any condition about the surrender. And when General Lee surrendered, well, General Grant did not want them pressed, and so he did not want any prisoners of war, and instead even he provided the food, and that food was enough for feeding 25,000 soldiers, and he did not get the horses back from the southern camp. So the southern soldiers can go back to their hometown without losing their dignity, even though they lost the game. And that was really helpful for the United States to maintain its unity after the war. Just think of the situation. They fought the war for 5 years. Yeah, they fought against each other for 5 years, and we can easily imagine that. How can I put it? A lot of people were wounded and killed, and it left scar to their mind. And the southern camp lost the game, and maybe they lost their pride, and they felt stressed, and they were worried about the possible revenge from the winner. But the North didn't do it. They just let southern soldiers to they just let southern soldiers go back to their hometown freely. And this was really, really helpful for them to maintain the unification after the Civil War. And this kind of situation, the similar situation can be found at the case of the First World War, but the opposite. When it comes to the First World War, what happened after the end of the First World War? Yeah, the winners, including France, United Kingdom, and other nations, they demanded a lot to Germany, and they needed a scapegoat. They needed to explain about how can I put it? They need to explain about why they had to suffer a lot during the First World War. And so the political powers and the political group wanted to maintain their power, and they had to explain about the beginning and they had to explain about the whole situation of the First World War. So they took Germany, and Germany lost the game, but anyway, so the winning group needed a scapegoat, so they demanded a lot to Germany, and Germany could not endure it, and they had no way but to go to another war, and that is the breakout of the Second World War. And if General Grant did like that, maybe the United States was divided into several pieces after the Civil War, because the Southern camp wanted to revenge. But General Grant, he did not demand anything to the lost General Lee, and General Lee could go back to his hometown quite peacefully. And also they had a personal relationship. When it comes to General Grant, he was not a successful soldier. General Grant entered the military academy, and his grade was not so good. But when it comes to General Lee, he was graduated from the military academy of the United States in honor, and General Lee was always number one in the military. And also during the Mexican War, the war toward Mexico, the war between the Mexico and United States, General Grant belonged to the Lee's group. It means that General Lee was the supervisor of General Grant during the period of Mexican War. So when they meet together, General Grant said, General Lee, I once belonged to your army," something like this. And by making himself situated lower, General Grant wanted to make General Lee did not feel pressed, did not feel humbled. So by doing that, General Grant could maintain the unity after the Civil War. And the episode continued like this. After that, General Lee came back to his own hometown and stayed there for his whole lifetime with just one exception. One exception is that the day when General Grant was inaugurated as the President of the United States, When General Grant was elected as the President of the United States and when he was inaugurated, General Lee left his hometown to visit Washington to congratulate General Grant. This is a quite, how can I put it? Is this a beautiful story? And is the, can this be taken as the typical negotiation case at the cases of international negotiation? Maybe this kind of, well, how can I put it? This kind of case can be taken as the example of international negotiation just after the war, and we could remember a lot of cases in global world history. The negotiation case between the United States and Vietnam after the Vietnamese War, and the negotiation with the winning group and losers group, well, at the case of the First World War and the Second World War. And when it comes to Asia Pacific, the the surrender negotiation between Japan and the United States, and what did they do? And what kind of tactics did they use? And what kind of strategies did they make? Hmm? This is quite important to understand international negotiation. And the case of General Grant versus General Lee can be taken as the good example of explaining the cases of international negotiation. Sorry. So, before going to negotiation case 3, just look back the picture again. Yeah, the General Lee and General Grant. And all the pictures depicted the General Lee like a winner. But we know why the pictures was painted like this. It was to show that General Grant, how can I put it, wanted to maintain the unification after the Civil War, and it worked, and it successfully worked. Okay, let's take a break a little bit and then go to slide 3. Actually, I recorded this part 2 times because, when I uploaded the first part to the YouTube, owing to the error, the YouTube could not link this video clip to the e-class of ours. So that's why I do it again, and that's why my voice is a little bit harsh. Okay, anyway, so this kind of negotiation case is quite interesting, and and this story is widely known to the U.S. public citizens. So, and they believe that General Grant's, General Grant's generous attitude make it possible for the United States to maintain the unification after the Civil War. And this shows us how the winner should treat the loser if they want to prevent the possible revenge from the loser. Don't make them feel humble. Don't make them feel don't make them feel pressed, and don't make them feel lose a lot. By making them feel better, and by making them that, how can I put it, by making them think that they did not lose everything, they could prevent the possible revenge from the losers. So in a real world, actually, if you win a certain game, maybe, sometimes people wanted to take the gesture that winner takes it all, but even though winner can take it all, but it does not mean that winner can discriminate or treats badly to the losers. Even though, you are the winner, just be careful that, you should not treat the losers in bad ways. And the episode of General Lee and General Grant make us remember that lesson for a long time. Yeah, this is the episode, and a little bit later we'll go to episode 3. So see you at the next slide. Thank you.